Finally. The Amityville Murders is a 2019 horror film written and directed by Michael Ferrans and focuses on the life of the DeFeos, which was the family that famously lived in the Amityville house before the Lutzes moved in. Among the 7 family home is Ronald DeFeo Jr., who throughout the film starts to get a little bit crazier and crazier, whether through the fearful actions of his father or through an unseen demonic force that seems to be trapping him in a horrific plot. So, I'll be honest, when I first started watching this Amityville marathon thing, this was why. Like I said, the 2 main true stories that are found in the Amityville horror, the Lutzes and the DeFeos, out of those 2 stories, the DeFeos interest me the most. There are things about that story that are still mysterious to this day, and I wanted answers. It takes everything that is known about the DeFeos, is suspected about the DeFeos, and of course the supernatural aspect theory, and it creates this big, massive ball that is just really satisfying. It's basically the best of both worlds. I also wanted to see the movie because of how they show the Amityville house. It's the only movie in the entire franchise that shows it how it should be seen, as a big, ominous black house, because back then it wasn't white, it wasn't repainted yet, it was black and really, really ominous looking. You look at the old crime scene photos of the house, it's black. However, I know that it's dealt with in CGI, and bad CGI at that. That's one of the main things that people keep on talking about with the movie. It's bad CGI. It takes me out of the experience. What I wanted to do was weigh the odds. I wanted to see what it got right about the factual information, the theories, all that, and their vision for what everything looked like or should have looked like. Should be good. Let's get into it. Now, I don't know what it is about the Amityville house or the movies based on it that just means that people can't act. I was supremely disappointed in the acting, specifically in this movie. All the movies kind of suck, but this one apparently was the worst because they tried their hardest to be good actors. They weren't staying in the safe range as a lot of the movies in the past actually did. This one, they were actually making an effort to do something that stood out. And it did stand out in a bad way. And a part of the reason why is because they just had some bad dialogue, had a bad script. It just didn't work very well. It just took you out of the movie immediately with everybody, which is so unfortunate. The characters' casting importance, they were all pretty average. Nothing stood out there because it wasn't really trying to. Whenever you have a movie focusing on real people, the DeFeos were real people, you don't have strong characters, because in real life, a lot of people kind of blend in together, and that's what you kind of get here. You kind of get a lot of blending in together, as real families do, but at the same time, that just makes it not that memorable. However, the family chemistry is pretty decent. It's not everywhere it could be, but it is probably some of the best chemistry I've seen from any Amityville movie. 9 out of 20 possible stars for the people category. That's 45%. Something about the writing in the Amityville Murders was just off. I probably point specifically to the script, because the script just felt campy. All the main lines that should probably be dramatic and serious and scary are laughable. So dialogue gets 0, and so does story depth, which is so unfortunate. You're talking about a family, and a family that has problems, and whenever you have that, you should have something in there. Even if it's just the bones of something meaningful, you should have something in there that feels like you can relate to it. Unfortunately, it just feels like they have problems to have problems, and you can't really relate to it. Past that, I love the fact that they included all the stuff we know about the DeFeos. I love the fact that they included all of the things that people have theorized throughout the years and made it into a story that makes sense together. 5 out of 10. So with behind the scenes, a lot of people like to point out how bad the visuals are. They are not wrong. The visuals are very bad. But I'm not going to sit idly by and say everything about the visuals was bad, because the vision behind what they were going for is very good. They didn't just sit back and say, this is what the Amityville house looked like from the other movies, let's just do that. No. They were accurate in what they were doing. The house was black, which is true, and it looks like it was on this neighborhood, on this suburban-like street. and it was. The size of the house, the shape of the house, the massiveness of it is not bad. The details going into it are not bad. The only problem is there's a lot of lighting issues, a lot of shading issues, rendering issues, that when you look at it, makes you forget the fact that they were trying very, very hard to make this authentic. They probably just didn't have enough budget, because if they did, this movie would have been perfect. I know what you were going for. I know it didn't come out exactly as you wanted, though. Nothing else stands out. Everything else was done as anybody else would do it for the most part. Cinematography, editing, music, and sound, all of that feels fine for the tone of the film. Nothing else, nothing more. 6 out of 10 possible stars. Like the rest of the Amityville movies, the narrative structure is basically the same. Everything is fine other than the obstacles. These characters aren't really trying to get anywhere. They're not trying to get to a point B, so their point A has no obstacles in the way. But it does a very, very good job introducing you to who the DeFeos are. With the inciting incident, you can kind of claim that there's something going on in a summoning scene. Good culminating event for the climax of the film, and the following action, I'd say it calms down but does not return to a new sense of norm. Obviously it can't, right? Because the Lutz move in. 6 out of 10 possible stars. When it comes down to the entertainment category alone, I would say this is the most entertaining movie in the Amityville franchise, and it might be entertaining to you for different reasons, but for me it's entertaining because of how much they got right. So out of all the Amityville movies, I consider this the most rewatchable. I would actually go back and rewatch this specifically because this was the one I wanted to see from the get-go, and it didn't disappoint me enough to the point where I wouldn't watch it again. I would definitely watch it again. And yes, I had a very, very good time while watching. I wouldn't say as good of a time as I probably should have had. I think the visuals really did take me out of it sometimes. I think the acting sometimes took me out of it, which kind of ruined the experience fully. But I did have a good time at parts, so this gets half points. I don't care to buy or own it. I would say there are definitely discussion-worthy elements in this movie. I wouldn't say it's enough to the point where you would go recommend it, but if somebody else sees it, then you have somebody to talk about because there are things to talk about. So this gets half points. Is it engaging or riveting? Does it feel like you can pause or look away? Yes and no. I feel like there are moments in the movie that you can't miss specifically, that you have to be paying attention for. But there's a lot of repetitive motion. There's a lot of repetitive things going on. So this gets half points. Altogether, 5 out of 10 possible stars for the entertainment category. The specialty category, what do you expect to find out of the Amityville Murders? As an Amityville movie, how does it compare? Weirdly enough, I think this is the only Amityville movie in the entire series that I'm gonna give 10 out of 10 possible stars to, because this is what I wanted to see from the get-go. This is the most interesting story out of anything. The Lutz, I mean, you can make the argument that the Lutz created the story for fame, while the DeFeos, it wasn't about fame, it was a crime, and the crime itself was mysterious, and we just don't have all the answers. But this is a good example as to what could have happened, even if you ignore all the supernatural aspects to it. Just the family part, just the family disturbance would have happened anyways, is there. So 10 out of 10 possible stars. As a movie featuring the DeFeos, how does it do? Obviously, this is like the only movie that features the DeFeos, especially by name. But my question was specifically to Amityville 2, The Possession, and the Amityville Murders, because these two movies I thought were going to be pretty much exactly the same, just with different names. There are things here and there that I feel like were a shout out to each other, but it definitely feels like its own thing, and it definitely feels more accurate and more true to life than Amityville 2 did. For that, this is getting full points, 10 out of 10. As a horror film, was it scary? This is probably going to be no to most people because, like I said, the visuals and the acting specifically take you out of the movie enough to the point where you're not going to be engaged to be frightened. But what worked for me the most was when it felt like he was trapped. Like, there is so much dark energy in the house itself that it felt like I couldn't get out of the house, let alone Ronnie Jr. It was like for Ronnie DeFeo Jr., every corner that he turned, every inch of the house was crawling with dark energy and wouldn't let him escape, and it was taking over his body. And that was kind of a claustrophobic feeling for me as a viewer, and that part alone is kind of spooky. It's kind of scary if that's how he felt, even if there was no supernatural force. If the idea of the family was so abusive that he felt like he couldn't escape, and he just claimed supernatural forces as a way to explain away what he was feeling, that's really cool. In a traditional sense of horror, I wouldn't say it's like that, so I'm going to give this half points, 5 out of 10. Halfway decent. Did they make the movie they intended to make from the get-go? I think if they waited just a little bit longer, got a little bit more money, they probably could have made their vision more of a reality than it was. I could see what they were going for. It was almost there. It was almost there, but if they had just a little bit more time, they could have gotten there. They could have coached their actors on being a little bit more presentable. They could have rewritten the script again, and they could have gotten more finances for the visuals. But because of those three things, they take you out of the experience. That was not what they were envisioning. I could tell you that right now, but it was almost there, almost. So I'm going to give this half points, 5 out of 10. The special category gets 30 out of 40 possible stars. If we add up all those points, we get 61 out of 100 possible stars, 61%, which technically speaking is the second best Amityville movie that I have on my list, the top one being Amityville 2 for technical reasons. Guys, tell me what you thought of the Amityville Murders in the comments down below, and for YouTube, you know you can subscribe to me, hit that like button, hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, and until then guys, peace out.